Welcome to Larry the Alchemist, where we discuss all things heavy metal and hard rock. And welcome to another edition of Sabbath Sunday. This is where we get together on Sundays to discuss all things Black Sabbath. I'm here, of course, with Darren. He's here for most every Sabbath Sunday. Hey, Darren, did you do the quiz from last week's Sabbath Sunday?
Yeah,
what was your score?
The only one I didn't get was the what was the title of the Heaven and Hell album cover, the painting. I didn't get that one.
Okay.
And it was like angels smoking, right?
The Smoking Angels. Yeah.
Smoking angels. Yeah. I'm thinking, did I know that? I don't think I ever knew that.
All right, 90 out of 100. That's a respectable score. Respectable.
Yeah.
All right. Well, also Darren and I, we have a Black Sabbath podcast, Into the Void, a Black Sabbath podcast. I'll leave a link to that in the description down below. And for this week's episode, we are going to be listing our 5 favorite Tony Martin songs. We did an episode not too long ago where we listed our 5 least favorite Tony Martin songs. And I think maybe some people got the wrong impression of us, that we were dumping on Tony Martin. And that's not the case at all. Darren and I are big fans of the Tony Martin era of Black Sabbath. We're big fans of Tony Martin and his vocals. So it's not that we don't like Tony Martin. We just, for that particular episode, we had our least favorite. And so we wanted to make sure that people knew that we do like the Tony Martin era of Black Sabbath. So here we are with our 5 favorite songs from the Tony Martin era of Black Sabbath. Now, I did a video of my 5 favorite Tony Martin songs very early in my channel. Like, it was like the 3rd video, I think, that I made. And for fun, I did not go back and watch that video. So I do not remember at all what I put as my 5 favorite Tony Martin songs that video. That's almost 2 years ago at this point. So I thought it would be fun. This is a fresh slate for me. After we make this video, maybe I'll go and check and see. Because the way these things work, you know, Darren, right? These things can change over time, over years. They can change tomorrow morning. So,
absolutely, yeah. I mean, I put a list together, and it was off the top of my head, and I mean, it could be different tomorrow. I mean, to narrow it down to 5 is pretty difficult. So I'm not saying that these are my all-time favorites. I won't commit to that, but I will say that these are my current favorites. So.
All right. Well, what do you got for your number 5?
Number 5, I've got Jerusalem off of Tear. That was probably the first song that really grabbed me off that album. I think memory serves, Tear just came out sort of unceremoniously at the time, and I got it, and right away I liked it. It sounded sort of power metal to me. It didn't have like a lot of the Black Sabbath, the classic Black Sabbath earmarks. And the song Jerusalem is no exception. It's pretty, for the time that it came out, it was pretty modern, but it's just such a good song. There's different layers, little melodic plateaus within the song that are just like, oh, that's good. Oh, that's good. Oh, that's even better. You know, it's one of those songs where, even though it doesn't necessarily conform to the familiar Black Sabbath classic vintage template, or even with the 80s era, it's just a good song. And it's one song that I usually come back to right away when I get the desire to listen to Tear. Jerusalem. Okay. Number 5.
Well, I'm going to stick with that album, Tear, and I'm going to go for my number 5, Anno Monday. Yep. Love this song. The intro to the song kind of has a Children of the Sea vibe to it, with Iommi, you know, picking out the notes and everything. You mentioned that Tear has kind of like a epic power metal-ish feel to a lot of the songs. This song has that for me. The chorus of the song, I just love it. Tony Martin's voice is just soaring over the top. Your eyes are falling. That, like, right there with the layered vocal harmonies and everything, it just sounds massive. Martin's voice just soars over the top. The main verse riff has an almost like Zero the Hero chugging vibe to it. I was just like chugging away on that riff, but man, it's just the chorus of this song that just sells it for me. Cozy Pals, drum fills, big open drum sound. You know, you can maybe the mix of this album is maybe a little bit dated, but it kind of works on this song because the drums are real reverby and echoey and big and everything. And I just love the chorus of this song. Just a fantastic chorus. So number 5 for me, Anno Monday.
Yeah, I actually went between Anno Monday and Jerusalem, but I ended up with Jerusalem because I think for everything that you mentioned about Anno Monday, that's I feel the same way. It's great. It does have that chugging, almost Zero the Hero-ish vibe and that riff that I really like a lot. But I love Tony's vocals in that too. But for me, Jerusalem just won because of the strength of the way that the song is structured. It's just really just a very tight song. So
Sure. Okay, number 4.
okay, number 4 for me, and I've referenced this song probably a number of times in various videos and podcasts, but I really wasn't the song that initially grabbed me when I got Cross Purposes. In fact, it's probably ironically one of the ones I had a tendency to skip over. But more recently, within the last year or so, I've really gotten to love this song, and the song is called "Dying for Love," and it's kind of a ballady song, but it has a haunting quality to it. It has an emotion. It gives me the chills, and it reminds me a little bit of, in some respects, of "Rock Will Never Die" by Michael Schenker Group, where it kind of like it just has kind of a quiet confidence, sort of subdued, but very powerful in its emotional content. Uh, and so I recognize that in "Dying for Love," and I love Tony's voice in it because we're really focusing on Tony Martin, but his voice. This is one album where I think that I feel he really came into his own on. The lyrics are pretty inspired. It seems like it's coming from uh, a place of inspiration. His melodies and the quality of his voice is great throughout the album, but particularly on this song, I think he sounds really good. And it's usually when I get the desire to listen to Cross Purposes these days, this is like one of the first songs I revisit. So yeah, love the song "Dying for Love" at number 4.
Yeah, good choice. I say this all the time here too on the channel and the podcast that I really like Tony Martin in those dark ballads. I think he
Yeah.
really shines when he sings those type of songs. All right, my number 4 is the title track from the Eternal Idol, the song "The Eternal Idol." In my opinion, maybe the darkest song from the Tony Martin era. It sounds like it could have come off of Sabotage, maybe. Reminds me a little bit of like that quiet part in the writ when the bass is just playing. There's when the verses drop down on this, and there's these little like keyboard effects, like these like noises and the bubbling sounds underneath. Reminds me a little bit of like Sign of the Southern Cross. And the way Martin's voice is just almost speaking in that, it's so ominous and eerie. And Black Sabbath Tony Iommi doing this sort of signature Black Sabbath thing of playing a riff really quiet and then a really big, huge riff. When that huge riff kicks in and Martin's voice just goes up into the stratosphere, it's sometimes, Tony, you forget sometimes how amazing of a voice he has.
Yeah.
He's able to deliver that low range so confidently, but then he has that clean, soaring voice over the top. He just has an absolutely massive range. The Eternal Idol in general feels like an album that some of these songs could have happened during the Dio era. The song The Eternal Idol for me even feels like it's something that I could have pictured on, like I said, Sabotage, or just, it has a real creepy, moody vibe to it. I think it's a great way to end the album. And I just think that Tony Martin just delivers it. There's even a point where in the verses, I think, where there's like 2 voices, like there's one like lower something and like a lower harmony, and it gives it this ominous, like very threatening like vibe or something. And I just think it's great. I love the atmosphere of the song. So that comes in at number 4 for me, Eternal Idol.
Cool. Yeah, that's a great pick. Yeah, I love Eternal Idol. I think it's a great album. And you're right. It does kind of there's some callbacks to the Dio era, and there is some like 70s era vibes too. Some of the riffs. With the song Nightmare, kind of has more of like a bouncy,
Yep.
bluesy song, but it's heavy and it's dark, but it fits in well with other songs that are different, like Glory Ride, which is more of like a power metal kind of a song. But I love that riff. Yeah, Tony's guitar tone throughout the album is really good too. So yeah, that was a good pick. My number 3 is from Headless Cross, and the song is Nightwing. That was probably one of the first songs that I was drawn to from Headless Cross. The title track, of course, is cool, but I've heard it a lot, and as much as I like it, I tend to gravitate more to the songs that are a little less listened to. And for me, one of those songs is Nightwing. There's some things I have issues with on this album, and when we get to our podcast, we'll get into that. But production, the primary point of contention that I have, but and also the way that throughout the album, I think that Tony's guitar is more subdued, whereas with Black Sabbath, with the biggest takeaway for Black Sabbath, other than whatever singer they had, it was always very profound. The vocals were always a profound part of Black Sabbath, but the guitar, especially Tony Iommi's guitar tone, was such a profound Black Sabbath trademark. I feel some of that is a bit diminished on Headless Cross, but on Nightwing, that riff that I guess is midway to the end really has a cool Black Sabbath, Tony Iommi classic vibe. And for that reason, and Tony Martin's voice is great, very melodic, lyrics are cool, it's a catchy song, gets to the point pretty quickly, but to me it has more of a Black Sabbath vibe to it than probably 80% of the songs on the album. So yeah, Nightwing for me, number 3 Tony Martin songs.
Okay, that was on my list, and it got knocked off by Eternal Idol, just because Eternal Idol is a little darker for me. But yeah, love that song. I especially love towards the end there when he does it, Nightwing flies.
Yeah,
and he like takes the chorus and just goes way up into the stratosphere with it.
yeah.
Awesome. All right, my number 3, I'm sticking with the Eternal Idol album, and it's the opening track, The Shining. It's an awesome track opener. Love the main riff. I love the intro to it. It sort of sets up a little bit of a mood, and then when that heavier riff comes in, it's just big, powerful Dio era Sabbath kind of vibe to it. And when everything sort of drops out and it's the bass and the drums and Tony Martin doing his thing there, I think is great. I love the part in the song where everything drops down and the guitar's picking away there, and he's doing that descending chord pattern, and he does that bells will take their toll on your, that part is just fantastic. I think Iommi's guitar solo in it is great. I remember getting this, and we'll get into this with the podcast about the 7 Star album, so I'm not going to give away my feelings about the 7 Star album, but I remember kind of feeling reassured, like, all right, yeah, I felt really confident. It was like, okay, this is good. I'm really liking where this is going. I thought
Back on track. Things got
yeah,
back on.
and it just felt heavy. It felt sort of had a real triumphant, epic feel to it. And I just love that middle section, and Martin's melody line there is just great. So number 3 for me, the opening track from Eternal Idol, The Shining.
Cool. So number 2, I'm going to go back to Cross Purposes, and probably my favorite song on Cross Purposes, other than I love Dying for Love. but my number one song on Cross Purposes is Cross of Thorns. Love it. I think it's one of my top 10 Black Sabbath songs, actually. But love the lyrics, um, the way the song is composed, the emotional uh, vibe of it. And it's another one that gives me chills. Tony's voice is great. From quiet to like just loud and very emotional. It's another one of those songs where I can really tell that I think that this is probably the high watermark for Tony Martin. I think that lyrically, the quality of his singing, the quality of his voice, both things are totally on point. But yeah, I mean, it's really strong chorus. Um, I love the song. Cross of Thorns comes in at number 2 for me.
All right. Well, I'm going to echo everything you just said. Number 2 for me is also Cross of Thorns. I always, definitely one of my favorite songs from this era of the band, one of my favorite Black Sabbath songs. What year did this album come out?
93.
94?
I'm going to say 93.
Yeah, 93, 94. I remember, we're sort of knee deep in grunge. And I can remember getting this and just it making me feel really, really good because it just felt like a, Black Sabbath album. It felt like it stood out from everything else that was going on in the mainstream heavy world, at that time with grunge and everything. And that song in particular, Cross of Thorns, you mentioned Tony Martin does this so well. The light and shade, singing quietly, getting very loud, that sort of pre-chorus thing, when a promise is broken, and it's just fantastic. And the way it sort of then drops with a cross of thorn, just fantastic.
It's classic. Yeah, it's classic. And for people that may have reservations about the Tony Martin era, but like the Dio era, I would strongly recommend they go back and check out some of these albums, because I mean, a lot of the things that I think people gravitate to when they reference what they like about the Dio era is definitely present on a lot of the Tony Martin albums. You mentioned a lot of highlights from, well, so far a few highlights from Eternal Idol, and I mentioned a few as well. Certainly that would be a good album to start with. Cross Purposes, and even like, I know that Headless Cross is a very popular album for a lot of Sabbath fans. They hold it in extremely high regard. But for me, if I were to recommend the Tony Martin era to somebody who's on the fence or maybe hasn't heard much of it, I would recommend the Eternal Idol and Cross Purposes, because I think that there's a lot of really good vocal melodies and strong songs. Strong writing and strong songwriting, and Tony just really, I think, does take command of the material in a way that maybe not quite as assertive as Dio was, but pretty darn close. And yeah, good stuff for sure.
Yeah, and there's albums that you have that you remember when you got them, and I can remember getting this and again kind of feeling like everything it was an album that came at the right time for me. I needed a strong Black Sabbath album, and I was just really happy to get this. And there was that Cross Purposes live CD, VHS and disc. It also came along with this tour, and I believe they do Cross of Thorns. I'm pretty sure they do Cross of Thorns in that live show. So it's definitely a hidden gem from this era of the band. All right, so what's your number 1 pick?
My number 1 is The Shining. You kind of stole my thunder on that. But I can't change it. I mean, that's my favorite Tony Martin song. I love his voice. I mean, I love the song, but I love the way his voice sounds on it. So strong, so clear. I mean, the melodies are outstanding, but the way that his voice just comes in with crystal clarity and just really nails the notes. It's perfect. In a lot of ways, it's also a perfect song. It's a little different for Sabbath, I think, at that time, but it worked. There was a good dark vibe to it. It did have kind of a majestic feel, which I think was something that was kind of introduced during the Dio era, so it carries some of that over with it. But it has a completely new singer, and you can't deny that Tony Martin had a great voice and sounds really good on Eternal Idol. But that song, I think, just really just knocks it out of the park. Great album opener, and yeah, probably my favorite Tony Martin song tonight. it could be something else tomorrow, but for right now, The Shining wins for me, number
All
one.
right. Well, I probably would have put Cross of Thorns as number one, but my number one, I just really feel like it's almost a signature song of the Tony Martin era. It's almost like Heaven and Hell is for Dio during the Dio era. This song is that for Tony Martin, and it is the title track, The Headless Cross.
Yeah.
He sounds fantastic on it. You have that Cozy Pal drum intro. It's got a big riff to it. Maybe a little diminished, like you mentioned, about the production. The guitar is a little awash in reverb and a little distancy sounding, so that takes away a little bit from it. But Martin sells it. The chorus is fantastic. All those voices sort of layered in there. That's something that Dio did. Dio did put background vocals in songs. But Tony, this is sort of an underrated thing about the Tony Martin era. He put more of that and made it more of like a, something you would hear from, I'm trying to think of a band that had a lot of vocal, not quite like Queen, but maybe not quite to that extent, but maybe something like Journey or something, where there's just clear voices that really elevate the choruses of the song. And this is an example of that. And there's just that super high voice, let's cross.
Yeah.
Great. It's just such a big, bombastic chorus. And it has that, again, we mentioned this a little earlier, that it has that, the verse sort of, everything drops down in the verse, the chorus gets super big. I always loved Iommi's solo in this song. It's like it modulates to a different key, and there's that ba-da, ba-da, da, da, that one riff in it, I think is super, super cool. So just a cool song. It's really Tony Martin's first, the story, and we're going to get into this in the podcast, that Tony Martin comes in, Ray Gillen has already sung on the record. So for Eternal Idol, it was really Martin just copying what Ray Gillen had done. This was his first stab at asserting himself. And I think if there's any song that's a signature from this era of the band, for me, it would be the song, The Headless Cross. So for that reason, it comes in at number one for me.
Yeah, it's totally iconic, and that was almost my third choice, but I went with Nightwing instead, only because I wouldn't say I'm burned out with Headless Cross. I mean, it's a great song, and when you're talking about the vocal layering, I'm not sure how much of that is Jeff Nichols. Doesn't Jeff Nichols do some backup vocals, and he has
maybe
more of a higher range?
Well, when they did that song live, I think what they were doing was that those vocals were pre-recorded, because he tended to not even sing that. He would just drop back and all those voices would come out. And I'm pretty sure at that time that was probably Jeff Nichols sampled those vocals, and he was, but you're right. There's a lot of, during this era of the band, the keyboards are also sort of layered into these things in such a way that it's almost like you're not even sure if it's that keyboards or is that vocals. It's done in a way that the keyboards help elevate and lift a lot of these things, like a textural thing.
Yeah, well, I mean, there's definitely Jeff Nichols with the keyboards, but I think he also did some vocals too. I think
you're right. I think so. In the live setting, he was singing. Even during the Dio era, you can hear him singing some background vocals.
Yeah, the Headless Cross is great. And one of the things I first noticed about that was that Tony Martin, coming off of Eternal Idol, where everything is sort of in the mid to higher range, very well done, nothing wrong with that. But with this, he goes down a little bit lower. When I first heard Headless Cross, I thought, okay, this is bringing a bit of the Dio vibe back into the band, you know, with the way that he sings the verses and then goes up real high. And it's a completely different singer from Dio, but the technique, or the dynamic in the voice was similar, and I thought that was pretty cool. And I appreciated the fact that it wasn't moving on to a completely different sound of the band. It was keeping that Dio era vibe alive and current, and I appreciated that. And I thought right off the bat, this guy can sing. I mean, he's great. Who is he? Who is this guy? Where'd he come from? Wow. You know, that was my first impression of Tony Martin.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
All right. Well, there you go. There's our 5 favorite Tony Martin era songs. Probably would change for us tomorrow. I'm going to go back, check my video from 2 years ago. I have a feeling that I have some different ones on here, some same, but let us know in the comments down below what some of your 5 favorite Tony Martin era Black Sabbath songs are. Let us know in the comments, and we'll see you at the next Sabbath Sunday.